I think anyone who's ever played rugby is familiar with the curse of the mystery bruise. You finish the game feeling fine, uninjured, bloodied but unbowed, and then the night passes, and by the time you wake in the morning with, if you played for any of the sides I ever did, the stench of defeat still wafting, you start to notice. All over your legs, arms, torso, every inch of your body. Bruises in places you didn't know you hit. Aches in places you never knew you hurt. This happened after every game of rugby I ever played. Ireland's titanic win over South Africa to top Pool B, however, might be the first time I ever had it from just watching. For once, World Rugby's insistence I only use stills is not for copyright reasons but for safety. Just 6 seconds of match footage sprayed into the eyes is enough to break a man's leg. Paediatric wards the following day were crammed with crocked bairns who traded staying up past their bedtime for broken ribs after just watching a few seconds of Eben Etzebeth making those tackles. This was one of the most physical, brutal, demanding and downright exceptional games of rugby I've ever watched. Both teams going hammer and tongues with emphasis on the hammer, only for South Africa to fall short at the last second against a truly remarkable Irish side. So, how did Ireland come out on top? Just how hard did the Boks push them? And perhaps most importantly, how scared should all 18 other sides be after what we witnessed on Saturday? It might not have been one of their now trademark 20-try festivals of passing, but I genuinely think Saturday might be Ireland's most impressive performance under Andy Farrell. Over the last few years, Ireland have become one of the game's great try scorers. France, Scotland, New Zealand might be more meters in attack and play more open attacking rugby, but nobody finishes, takes their chances and crafts moves that actually result in 5 points like Ireland. Their attack is so intricate, built on small details and smaller passes, these kind of tiny pops so key to how they open up an opposition, looking to suck defenders inwards by biting in to mark a player taking such a short ball. A defender is abandoning their position and allowing one or two of the green bodies further out, so much more space to run into when the token wide ball comes. It's a magic trick manipulation of space that has magnificent results time and time again, tries a plenty and one Grand Slam in the bag, plus wins over basically every other major test nation except bloody Uruguay, who Ireland are afraid to play because they're cowards. The Irish simply use the bodies they're given in attack better than anyone else. Once they get up to the try line, the whole focus becomes pinning their opponents in, lying over them, grabbing legs, preventing tacklers getting back up to their feet, looking to deplete numbers in the defensive line. If one guy from your side can pin in two from the other team onto the floor, then that's a great use of resources. It's technically cheating, but that's the beauty of it, is bending the laws in a way that no referee will ever pick up on, and therefore it's legal, and it no doubt makes Razzie very jealous that he didn't do it first. The Springboks on Saturday took all of this away from Ireland in a manner never quite seen before over Andy Farrell's era. The Boks adapting their defence in a manner's boke to Ireland and just leaving them playing with a fraction of what they normally have. A huge key component of the Springbok defensive system is normally this: the winger shooting in off his wing to make huge shots to try and hit his man. It doesn't matter if they complete the tackle, if they get the guy to ground, because the goal is simply to stop the ball getting wider, to prevent the pass coming. They want to stop the move rather than the man. They don't need to be on their wing if the ball's never getting out there. On Saturday, instead of targeting the man as normal, we saw Aronson and Colby harry the space. Ireland's attack moves so quickly, players slot into position last second, both wingers often brought in late to create an extra man in the boot, the space behind, to take these short passes and operate as playmakers like this, often popping up on Gary Ringrose or Julius Sexfrog's shoulders when least expected. Knowing hitting the man is near impossible often because of how frequently Ireland's attack changes the picture so often, we saw South Africa instead send Aronson, de Klerk and Colby into the space immediately off the playmaker's shoulder, just looking to block a short pass no matter where it goes, whilst other players flood the channels. The goal is simply to stop Ireland getting these short passes away, to mean nobody else would ever get sucked in, everyone else can just drift outwards with only the winger coming in. If they can prevent these small passes, they never need worry about the long one that will come in a few phases time, whilst the forwards were also incredibly smart. Here, instead of their normal play of just sending multiple men up to double tackle and smash the ball carrier and control the gain line, the Boks send Visa up on his own, trusting he can cover this guy and this guy. Ireland play out the back so often, it'd be daft to just commit free forwards here, so instead Etzebeth gets a very special job that he loves. He loves this job. It's kill Jesuit sex sand. To quote the late great Welsh centre Ray Gravel, Etzebeth is looking to get his first tackle in early, even if it's late, because outside him is Peter Steph de Toy, a rare flanker who reads an attack as well as any centre, any world-class centre, and he's positioned to double job, meaning he can get to whichever player receives the short pass, catching Archie behind the gain line. A simple shuffling of resources slightly out has allowed South Africa to shut down this defence entirely, and shortly we see their other trick. Byrne and Doris here spot Visa and Malherbe near the ruck. Now, as any over-analyser of the Springboks will know, this whole system, their whole defence is run by the tight head and the 8, taking position around the ruck and scanning for threats, looking to alert others to the danger. This is from the last World Cup semi-final. Wales are running a very similar island-style move for short ball to a back three on the inside, hitting a line late. And whilst the main defensive line falls for this, Vermeulen at the ruck spots this and calls it, allowing them to spook Halfpenny into dropping it right away. This is why Ireland need to get them out of the game, and so wanting to prevent this, Byrne and Doris go to pin the pair to the floor, but South Africa simply resist. They step out the way, they take a step backwards and then over, leaving the Irish pair flailing pointlessly on the floor. 2 bodies have been spent to take 0 Springboks off their feet. It's a total waste of Irish resources, and it leaves the Irish attack entirely predictable, frankly, without any extra dummy runners to suck people in, no extra bodies to watch, allowing Colby to take this intercept. However, as the days went by, Cheslin Colby started to wish he could watch this back, and yet when he checked World Rugby's page here in France, he found nothing. And that's when Cheslin remembered he had NordVPN. With World Rugby's clamped down on highlights, even watching this try back was tricky, but thankfully NordVPN allowed Cheslin to bypass that in instants. The app connecting to any country of his choosing at a rate that made even him go, "God blimey, that were fast," which is how Cheslin Colby talks now. He's a street urchin from the 18th century. Bypassing geo-blocking to watch the highlights of his own match on YouTube so easily, able to watch full matches back by just VPNing to another country, all whilst connecting to home servers back in South Africa for added protection whilst abroad for the World Cup. Able to conceal his IP, to cease any trackers, prevent malware and adverts heading his way. And if you want to do the same and add online security as well as bypassing a lot of the silly geo-blocking that's preventing people watching even bloody highlights of these games during the tournament, or watch full matches in an instant, a bloody Cheslin Colby approved instant, please head to this very link on the screen now or in the description below. Get an additional 4 months added free when you subscribe to NordVPN. There's another big Bok defensive effort here. 3 phases in a row, including one with Van der Fleer at 9 where he hears a clear call from 10. Ireland hit the widest man of a pod of 3 forwards. They're looking to get the Bok D into a pattern of defending, so on phase 4 they can exploit this now being an outside rush to hit an inside ball too low, but the Boks are just totally wise to it. Khaleesi making a phenomenal tackle, having hung back on the inside just in case some tricksy bullshit comes. Dutoy meanwhile putting in another big late shot on Sextung. This is perhaps the best of them all, however, and yet it's the smallest of the lot. Ireland love this ploy. Form a dummy maul before Van der Fleer or Sheehan breaks off and delivers a pass to Gibson Park at 10, who then hits his runner and initiates a move, a first phase strike move. However, here, Etzebeth reads that's what they're going for immediately and gets in position to grab Van der Fleer the moment he tries to break off. He keeps the flanker in the maul, causing Kelleher to then come in, and then Gibson Park has to come in as well and calls the whole move off. The scrum half rescues the ball. Archie then just has to carry. There's no real timing on this. There's no urgency. It's a frankly quite sloppy carry that's easy for South Africa to choke. Ireland play another phase to try and find shape, except Khaleesi almost wins a turnover. A billion Irish forwards come in to try and secure it, and it leaves Ryan carrying in on his own next phase, which VC gets over very cleanly and wins a penalty. It's a terrible attack by Ireland, one of the worst we've seen in 18 months, and it's all because one moment of bastardry by Eben Etzebeth dismantled an entire attack before it could get going in a way Ireland couldn't overcome and couldn't find a way to get back around. Since they hit full power about 18 months ago, I've never seen a defence take Ireland's attack away from them as completely as South Africa did on Saturday. Even when on the try line they remained composed and patient, never falling for the tricks and traps. And yet what we saw on Saturday was Ireland's most impressive performance under Danny Fell, because all this was gone and yet they just managed to adapt. Here, Ireland hired Mac Hansen on the short side and he wraps around late to enter Ringrose's slipstream, but Aronson reads it brilliantly. He shoots up to eat the space between Ringrose and potential Hansen, killing the designated move. But since he's aiming for the space, not the man, Aronson just eats that up, hitting Hansen instead of Ringrose, the centre instead now guided into a cul-de-sac of Bok bodies but still a live ball. The move now off, Ireland instantly in a split second adapt their shape on the fly. Archie remains an option and it draws the Bok in, because you've got to watch bloody Bundy Archie, is bloody Bundy Archie, meaning the wide ball is on. Keenan adjusts his line brilliantly, holding his depth so wherever Ringrose lobs it, he can run off the ball and hit it at full pelt, breaking the defence and getting up to within inches out of the try line. Doris knocks it on the following phase, but the way Ireland adapted a shutdown attack into an assault that's 1 yard short of a match-winning try is huge, because South Africa took all of Ireland's usual weapons away from them. This team normally thrives on a huge arsenal of set plays, ideas and attacking shapes, all perfectly deployed by Jungle Child Sexquip at 10. But what we saw on Saturday was Ireland forced into plan B and thriving, a far more basic basic, no bells and whistles forward-based game that was still able to overcome the Springboks to hold them off no matter what the Boks did to dismantle them. In particular, at set piece. Ireland lost their first 4 lineouts of the game. South Africa imperious in the air. The first 2 throws here are both aimed at Burn, and South Africa simply position Ibn Etzebev opposite and lob him in the air. It's easy read and easy steal. And so, Ireland's next lineout, they make the fair assumption, okay, Etzebev is the guy cracking our code, we'll trick him and not throw it to Burn, and we've sorted the issue. So James Ryan here looks initially to be lifting Burn, then switches from jump option to front lifter, then backwards at the last second to lift at the tail, leaving Etzebev up front on the ground. He can't jump for this, except they've got it wrong. The key guy to the Boks defensive lineout operation isn't the jumper, it's the lifter. Namely, here in this game, Jasper Wiese. Ryan's little theatrics may fool Etzebev, but it just telegraphs it to Wiese and gives him more time to switch position and lift Mostert. Indeed, Ireland's first successful lineout looked like this. They shuffle an entire pod backwards, meaning Wiese gets caught in the middle between 2 men and they can sweep it away cleanly. It just goes to show Ireland's playbook is near infinite, and there are variations endlessly on lineout attack for nearing every situation, and they're able to adapt so cleanly, and that includes for their only try of the game. Finished by the single player I'm most confident has found a weed dealer here in France, Mac Hansen. After a series of pick and goes near the line, Jupiter Sex Feast flashes to the blind side, then realises this isn't happening, so calls the play off and tells JGP to just go open side whilst him and the backs reload round there. But where most sides would take the time, wait a few phases whilst the 10 gets into position and they work out what's going on, trying to time pulling the trigger, Sex Turkey just calls it out immediately. The moment players are in position, the ball comes out. It's a great move as well. There are 2 options here for Sex Flip to loot, adapting to the Boks shutting down their short passes by giving them so many more options to watch. Colby actually defends this brilliantly, closing the space and meaning the extra pass won't make much of a difference, so Sex High takes it in himself. However, this is where the interesting bit begins. As Sex Frown takes contact, James Lowe slides in immediately into the director's chair, telling Keenan to clear out instead of committing himself as a closer man, sliding into 10. Lowe then calls O'Malley into this position, just a body for these 2 Bok defenders to watch, and JGP throws an unbelievable pass. It's so fast, so flat, and you're going to need to take my word for it, because Bill Beaumont says, no, you can't look at this pass. If you look at this pass, I'll come around your house and talk to you about rugby values for 8 hours. Willemse is in a decent position, and if the ball's in the air for like a human being's pass amount of time, he can cover both Lowe and Hansen, but this alien superhuman mad pass that Beaumont says once again, don't look at. Once the ball gets in Lowe's hands, he lobs it fast and hard over the top, and Hansen squeaks over in the corner, needlessly close to going out. It's once again a fantastic adaptation of their usual shapes, because over the last year, we've started to see Ireland lean on the entire team calling these shapes, not just sex loot, including Henshaw here going for the all or nothing cross kick himself, and Lowe slotting in at 10 to call an attack on the try line is a perfect example. For years, people have worried what would happen if Jeep Sex Creep gets injured during this World Cup, and in response, instead of say blooding another fly half, Andy Farrell has been decentralising his role to make sure an injury causes less damage than it would have 18 months 2 years ago, with every back now calling plays and used to organising shapes. In the likely scenario, team targets him as much as the Boks did on Saturday, and perhaps he's on the floor for a phase or 2 at a time. Ireland's momentum is not lost by losing their 10. This overall was just a fascinating game. Ireland were physically immense, their pack matching both Bok packs brilliantly, and they problem solved some unbelievable defence on the fly. And yet, the much mentioned goal kicking issues for South Africa could have changed this game. Hardre Pollard, in his absence, has become even more valuable to this team than he was when he was playing, and his presence could turn the Springboks into an even more frightening side, because the World Cup is far from over for both of these teams. What we saw on Saturday with the Springboks really targeting the opposition rather than necessarily looking at themselves, and I think there's far more they could have in the locker. There's so much more they could be doing, and yet they almost took Ireland apart. Both these teams have long ways to go in this World Cup. They'll be waking up with bruises from both this game and the video analysis session from watching it back for days to come, but it's shown just how high both sides' ceilings are. The one hope has got to be that playing what is essentially an extra knockout game at near the intensity of a final, so close to the real thing, doesn't tire either side out, adds 20% more fatigue to their bodies, especially after these 2 sides had arguably the most demanding warm-up schedules and played pretty strong teams across the board in most of their games. Because what we saw on Saturday was possibly the 2 best teams in the world, at least the 2 best teams in the world, knock off France, making their cases to be number 1, knowing in a few weeks' time only one of them can have the opportunity to say they were number 1 once and for all. Thank you for watching that. That was mostly edited on a 7-hour train journey from Lyon to Nantes ahead of Argentina v Chile this weekend and Wales v Georgia next weekend, and Japan v Argentina next weekend as well, where I'll be hanging around all of those. I hope you enjoyed that. Obviously, the still format is very, very far from ideal, but, you know, we're making do as we go. So thank you for watching. There's hopefully plenty more coming. We're thinking maybe putting some stuff out for Patreon in close to the normal format, and obviously hoping, by the end of this one we'll be able to return to the normal format without using stills. It makes it so much more difficult to edit. There's so much I had to, cut out or trim down just because it doesn't work as stills. But I hope you enjoyed it regardless. As a podcast we're doing, we did a full lengthy episode just on this game, just going through our thoughts on this game, looking through some of the Springbok tactics, particularly on kicking and kick return and so on as well, and digging into quite a lot of that. So please go and listen to that, which is done on Wales Australia. That's up there now. It's called the Squidge Rugby World Cup Contemporary. It should be available on all good podcast applications. I'll leave a link in the description as well. Please have a look there, and otherwise I'll see you soon for more rugby.
That is a highlight reel for social media. Yeah, but that's a bit.